First up this morning, have you ever heard of compassion fatigue? It happens to caregivers all the time. They get exhausted by always helping care for a loved one. So today, a big announcement about a new campaign called Heart Caregivers.
That's right. It's a movement to recognize family caregivers and help them cope with the stress of caring for a loved one. So here with the details is Lisa Lampkins. She's the Federal Issues Advocacy Director for AARP of Wisconsin. Good to see you.
Thanks so much. Great to see you guys.
Yeah, is it Heart Caregivers? Is that what it is? Okay, not just Heart Givers, but Heart Caregivers. Okay, awesome. This is great because I think so many people get worn out from caring for a loved one because it can be an around-the-clock kind of proposition.
Well, you're absolutely right. In Wisconsin, in fact, we have 590,000 caregivers just in the state of Wisconsin providing that unpaid family caregiving. And for many people, it is a 24/7 proposition without any break at all. That leads to a lot of stress, a lot of burnout, and yet it's a labor of love. And so Heart Caregivers is really a way to recognize those unsung heroes.
Why do you think it's so important to have the in-home caregivers and within the family for members?
You know, study after study shows that people want to stay at home in their communities. Nobody is saying, oh gosh, I can hardly wait to get to a nursing home, right? So unpaid family caregivers make sure that older people and loved ones can stay in their homes where they do better, they thrive, and it's where we all want to end up, right?
Yeah.
It's not surprising probably how many people would prefer to stay in their home if given the choice and having the option. In your opinion, what are some of the specific stresses that caregivers face? Because we talked before on the show about that sandwich generation where people are caring for an older loved one or one that's disabled, but then also potentially raising a family of their own.
Absolutely, and that is huge because a majority of caregivers still work outside of the home. And the average caregiver, though, provides at a minimum 20 hours of care every week. That's, on top of another job. Plus, some AARP studies have shown that caregivers actually provide a lot of medical and nursing tasks. Things like giving shots or medication management or dealing with wounds. This is really stressful for caregivers because they've not received, for the most part, any training on how to do that. And their main priority is keeping their loved one healthy and safe. And so that is a stress factor when it comes to taking care.
But there's a lot of reward that comes with being a caregiver and also being in the home and being able to do that for someone you love, right?
You know, we have heard from so many people, and one of the cool things about this Heart Caregivers, and it's a new website from AARP. You can go to aarp.org/iHeartCaregivers, and it's a chance for caregivers to tell their stories. And you'd think, oh, they'd be really, gosh, I'm overwhelmed, and there's certainly some of that, but much of it is, I wouldn't change a thing. I would do this all over again if given the chance. So it's very uplifting to listen to these people and the labor of love that they provide every day.
You've heard from a lot of people who probably experienced some burnout or people who are just doing the job on a daily or weekly basis. What advice would you give caregivers?
You know, I think particularly at this time of year, during this holiday time when we're all already stressed out and caregivers are already overwhelmed with these day-to-day responsibilities. And the holiday stress just magnifies it. So I think caregivers need to really recognize some of their own signs of stress and burnout and recognize those holiday sort of hot buttons. You know, if they're going to get criticized for their caregiving at a family gathering, is there a way they can skip that gathering? If they're overwhelmed with trying to keep up the old traditions like making a big, Christmas dinner, can they have it catered? Can you go out to a restaurant instead? Caregivers have to, like most of us, and we're not very good at doing it, but they really need to take care of themselves first. You hear that all the time. You can't take care of someone else unless you've taken care of yourself.
Yeah, it's that old face mask, on the airplane analogy. You've got to adjust your own face mask before you adjust someone else's. What are some of the resources that you provide for people? Because a lot of people who are caregiving this time of year, if they are feeling burned out or maybe they just don't know what's available, what do you offer to people?
That is really the terrific thing about Heart Caregivers is not only can you sort of be inspired by the stories, but if you kind of scroll down to the bottom of the Heart Caregiving page, you will find a caregiving resource center. It has tons of resources. There is a phone number because you can get sort of, phone support. There are online discussion boards. There's a whole section on caring for the caregiver. Resources abound. And I will say Wisconsin has a lot of terrific resources when it comes to helping caregivers. So I hope people know they don't have to be alone. Check out the Heart Caregivers webpage, and there'll be tons of resources that people can use.
That's great, Lisa. Here's the information so people can head on out and do that. Again, scroll to the bottom, and that's where a lot of those resources are, as well as a phone number. It's aarp.org/iHeartCaregivers. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Great conversation. We appreciate it. Up next.